Hello, this is Ralph Oliva, Director at ISBM, with an Institute Action Learning workshop on building winning value propositions. The approach we'll be providing here is a powerful template to enable you to build a stronger value proposition for total offerings that include products, services, internal operations, and other elements of what your firm is offering for sale to customers. Our overall objective in this workshop is to enable you to apply simple, powerful tools and thinking to your practice to help develop and sharpen some language around the concept of value proposition itself, to better understand the importance and power of value propositions in business, both internally and externally, and we'll be providing you with a proven framework for helping to develop stronger, more winning value propositions and some perspective on how this would be applicable in your function and in your firm, and to know where to go for more. We've all heard of a unique selling proposition. Here, we're moving to unique value proposition. This is not what we want to say about our offer so much as what is it that the customer wants to hear that we can say that ties into the work that we've done to understand what is real value to our customer. This is especially critical when we're launching new offerings. So we're moving to a customer-driven perspective on what we're about to do. We'll be talking about the total value of an offering. And an offering, particularly in business markets, includes not just the functional value, what the product does. These are the points of parity and the critical points of difference that create an economic impact for your customer versus the next best alternative that customer has for performing a set of operations. But we're also including the more right brain, the softer sides of things, the things that happen with your brand, service efforts, and experience. What does the product mean? We're putting this all together. Now, in business to business, most value propositions always include an economic impact for the customer, a lower cost, higher revenue, etc. But we won't forget and can't forget the supplier and service value, the things that could become more right brain, the feeling of security, the insurance, the things that go with your brand. Now, this definition of a value proposition is provided us by the amazing resource, Dr. Mohan Sani, ISBM Fellow at the Kellogg School of Management. We're talking about a compelling promise with desired set of product deliverables and experience that an offering provides to a specific target audience. Value propositions are focused on specific segments. That the value proposition outweighs its total perceived cost. There's an economic driving factor for the customer to buy the value proposition, is differentiated from alternatives and supported by reasons to believe. So we're including the functional, emotional, economic benefits, the key difference versus other alternatives the customer is considering. They have to be written from a customer's perspective and a skeptical customer point of view. And ultimately, we're making a promise to target customers that convinces them, it changes their behavior to prefer us versus competition. Now, in considering a value proposition on a specific offering, customers are always trading off the benefits that we're affording, the impact on their firm, both left brain and right brain. Is there a hard economic impact? Do I feel good about buying this offering? And the trade-off that, is our promise, is it differentiated? Do we support it, balanced against the price, the effort to make the buy, and the risk versus competitive? A value proposition tips the scales in our favor and changes customer behavior in our favor when it's done well. So before we get into specifics here, remember, value propositions are always written from the point of view of the customer. They're segment specific. You need to create several different value propositions for different segments, and you have to consider where you are in the value chain, who specifically are you focused on, and what is the offering that will change their behavior. We'll always be talking about an offering, a total offer. So before you begin working on this, be thinking beyond the little box of my product in a specific application inside the customer. We'd enjoin you to go much further in your thinking as you get into this exercise. As you're building a value proposition, be thinking more about the customer's total economic equation, the possible impact of your offering on the entire business that your customer at next step down the value chain is doing. For ideas on this, we suggest the great book, How to Grow and Market Stones by Dr. Adrian Zlowatsky and Richard Wise. He expands this concept in some depth and is a good warm-up reading, and it's on our Institute's must-read list for thinking more about moving beyond your product to the customer's total economic equation. In his book, Dr. Zlowatsky goes into how to view a customer through a total economic lens. It's a good warm-up for doing value proposition work in depth on how can you expand your total offering to differentiate and to make your value proposition more compelling, more differentiated in a competitive market, and more impactful on your customer. A good warm-up before getting into building a value proposition. And as we build value propositions, we want you to be thinking about your total offering, more than just the product. Again, combination of the products, services, the way they're delivered that can make your offering differentiated builds on the unique strengths and differentiation capability that your firm has. So again, in some situations in business to business, some customers just need chlorine inexpensively. And, chlorine is what they want and that's it. But many times you can find a segment that needs more than that, the product plus service, other things, or a total system approach. Or in some cases, if you can design, build, and operate a chlorine factory for a customer that becomes an essential part of their system, you're creating a compelling offering that would be very, very difficult to match by competition. So be thinking that way as you warm up and move in. So the template we're offering you to help strengthen this process looks pretty simple, but it forces gently some very disciplined thinking about value propositions is shown here. We'll be going through each piece of this template in some depth. So let's go ahead and do that. So the template begins with a statement of what target customer or segment are we going after and that need. Ideally, when we approach a customer, we should be able to say something like, for customers just like you, or even down to people just like you. When we use the target customer segment, that need, problem we solve statement, and do that correctly, these define the segment and the specific customers we're going after. Great value propositions are focused like a laser on specific elements of a target audience that have a specific need, ideally a need that we can solve better than any competitor. We then get to the name of our offering, and this can be a very complex decision. Sometimes an offering will become its own brand, but many times an offering needs just a careful descriptive name. And this is an interesting decision. Will the offering this particular time become something that will have its own brand, something like, for example, DuPont Tyvek house wrap? Tyvek became its own brand. But in some other cases, you have a good, strong brand already that you can use, and all you need is a descriptive name. This is an important decision to be made. Not every offering is a brand, but most all offerings have a brand as part of the total offering. Now we get to the one to really focus on. Why do you beat the next best alternative? Why you and not the competitive alternative? And this is a place where you really need to focus like a laser on what is it that the customer really needs that you have, that you can uniquely provide and competitors simply can't. This is a big one to focus on where people often get in trouble. Now, in business to business, this almost always includes some quantifiable business impact. Some way you reduce cost or increased revenue, you've had an economic impact. But it always also includes more than that, at least the power of your brand around the alternative, some of the other things that you do that competitors can't match. Don't confuse what you're good at with what customers will value. You're looking for unique, differentiating, compelling elements of your offering relevant to the target audience that competitors simply can't match. Now, in the value proposition statement, you might want to go ahead and identify what is the incumbent, what alternative are customers using now or specifically considering in this situation, so that it's clear to people who use the value proposition statement who you're competing against. This identifies, who is your particular competitor. Now note that sometimes the customer may not have an alternative right now. They may be doing without, or they may not even recognize how powerful you might be an offering might be for them, because they have never even thought about such an offering. And this often happens if you're coming up with an offering that sort of changes the rules of the game or brings them an offering, for example, as a service instead of a hard offering, or sells uptime, for example, on a pump rather than just selling the pump itself. So this is an important element to be thinking about as you crisp up the value proposition. So if the customer so far is believing you, they may stop now and go, well, prove it. Can you really do this? And this is where you put the proof and demonstrations on how you can do it. These are reasons to believe or proof points on why you're better than the next best competitive alternative. Now, important, often people confuse the proof points with the beats the competition line. The beats the competition line is something the customer cares about entirely from their point of view. The we do this by and is demonstrated by lines assumes that you've hit the customer with something they're interested in, and that now they really want to know, how can you do this? Prove it to me. And this is the place where you put your proof points, your technologies, your unique competencies that enable you to do something that the customer cares about. Now, some strategies for communicating a real reason to believe are shown here. This is courtesy of Dr. Ed Ziegler from DuPont. Sometimes you can just explain in a straightforward way while something, is better. Like our donuts are twice as sweet because we use twice as much sugar, for a consumer example. Sometimes you can give the customer an opportunity to see it or demonstrate it. And this is a place where now people are using YouTube videos and customer testimonials to do this. Sometimes it's because, if you're coming up with something that's brand new, sometimes it's because you've always done it, that maybe you do build your brand heritage into the proof points. Sometimes it's straight testimonials or guarantees. I mean, sometimes you're the only offering with an industry-leading guarantee. So there are a variety of ways that you can put proof points together. But again, don't confuse this with the beats the competition because line, which is focused on customer impact of your offering. So finally, at the end of this value proposition template, there's another piece of discipline. Is how does this offering, if this offering is delivered and it brings forth and actually makes its promise come true, how does this build our brand? How does this tie to our core brand vision? How does the value proposition not only mobilize our brand, but when the value proposition is delivered, how does it build the brand and continue to build brand equity for future offerings? How is this offering part deeply of our DNA? Have we mobilized some of the things that we and only we can do uniquely? So now that we've taken you through the template, just some concepts that will help along the way. Most offerings have to have certain points of parity. Everyone in the category must have these points and benefits in order to even play in the category. For example, in some markets, if you're not safe, safety is an absolute must-have for anyone in the category. So it's an important must-have, but everyone has it, so it's non-differentiated. So again, it's something that's important, but everyone has got it. Then there are your key points of difference. The key points of difference are things the customer cares about that make you different, things that can move the purchase in your direction that only you can uniquely provide and that the customer cares about. Then the tricky thing is points of contention. These are points of parity that the customer may not know you have, and these can come back and bite you. Sometimes you have to mention a point of parity if you're not sure that the customer understands, for example, that you are a safe alternative. Okay, so points of parity, points of difference, points of contention. Most often, points of difference are what are on that beats the competition because line in the value proposition template. Now, another place to go to learn more about value propositions is to go back and take a look at some of the writings of Dr. James Anderson. He's an Institute Fellow at Kellogg. His research includes many, many studies of value propositions, particularly in business-to-business markets. And he's summarized this in several articles and books on the topic. He studied three sorts of value propositions. One where the value proposition just loads up all of the benefits, puts everything we want to talk about our product into the beats the competition line, including points of parity and points of difference. This tends to confuse the customer and not hit the mark square on and get a mixed or poor result. Another cluster of value propositions he studied just focus on the key points of differentiation, just the things that make us unique, and load up there, and that gets a better result on the beats the competition line. But to get a much better result, you take the key points of difference that the customer cares about, and there may be some points of contention. So you might need to pick up 1 or 2 points of parity and focus like a laser on a specific segment in a resonating way. This gets much better results in a non-linear way, and this involves and requires deeper customer value research to understand what your customers really value in this specific situation. So, when you're finished preparing your value proposition, try number 1, you can ask yourself the question, now, is it really relevant? Is this going to wow the customer? Is it clearly differentiated? Can we take our firm out and put any competitor's name in there? Are we talking about, ephemeral things like quality without getting down to specific reasons why our quality is differentiated from other firms' quality? And is it credible? Can we build a good, strong reasons to believe part of it? The overall value proposition template, important. Now, keep in mind that this has to be done from the customer's point of view. And I'll mention once again, be careful of really confusing what you're good at with what the customers really want. And often it's not really clear what customers want. And in case after case in institute work, we've seen people selling something that the customers may not buy. For example, we sell the best and fastest components, but customers really needed applications help. We pride ourselves in making fast transactions when the customer may want a relationship sell. We may be selling product solutions at a reasonable price, but the customer may want something else. So we really need to be thinking this entirely from the customer's point of view and from where they're coming from in their business. And it's not selling what we have. It's really understanding what the customer needs and learning more about that. So another place to go further is the excellent classic reading, Marketing Myopia by Ted Levitt. This is a classic paper from the Harvard suite that any business marketer ought to read. In it, he makes the classic statement, are you selling drills when your customer really might just need holes? So a quick example here that uses this template in a sort of a bridge way from work we were doing with a glass company that was selling a specific kind of glass that actually changed color became more opaque as sun hit it. But again, for aesthetic minding architects who care about building occupants, who need to design buildings for contractors who want a competitive advantage, SunSmart is the brand of window glass that beats the competition because, and you can read these down, that uses the template to focus and build a strong, compelling proposition for a specific sort of architect who have a specific sort of need, not for all architects, all of whom might need glass. Now, a good, strong value proposition statement of the sort this template provides absolutely is the foundation for building good, strong messages to your marketplace. If your value proposition statement is well done, everything that happens afterwards can be stronger. Advertising, merchandising, collateral material, anything you're doing to create a connection with your customers can get stronger if there's a good foundation value proposition at the core, which is why we stress this template so strongly in this workshop. Done well, part of what comes out of a good, strong value proposition is just a short, pithy statement that can become your elevator speech. If you've only got 20 or 30 seconds to capture a customer's executive, such as you would do if you happen to connect with the CEO of your biggest customer in an elevator, what really would you say? A well-constructed value proposition can give you just what you need to say in a situation like that to get someone thinking differently about your offerings and your firm. So we've been through the template in detail, some of the reasons why this template can be very important, and some of the thinking around building value propositions. So it's time now for you to begin taking this template and seeing if it can't work to help you build stronger value propositions for your firm. So some suggestions for going forward. This template gently but firmly can force some discipline in the process. We've seen this work very well. Usually in institute practice, we say, well, templates are sort of guidelines and you can use them as you will. This is a template that actually gets better when you really follow it line by line, and the process can be tougher than it appears. We've seen it best used but in teams where you have discussion, creative interaction, where you can critique one another. Someone can play a skeptical business audience. What we've seen also is this is a very, once you get into it, you'll see, tough to get it right the first time. So we would suggest don't spend a lot of time trying to get it right the first time. And what we've seen is it takes at least 3 times in case after case after case to get to something good. And we see this as a very essential part of business marketing or any marketing done well. We wish you the best of luck using this template. And if you need more information, please do connect back with us at the Institute for the Study of Business Markets. This is Ralph Oliva.